But why is it so difficult just to listen? Perhaps because we have a hard time believing that it is simply our presence that helps, rather than our thinking and advising. In time, we discover that to be listened to is a way of being loved, and that listening is a way of being loving. And that is from an interview with, I don't know how to say that, Karen. Thich Nhat Hanh. Deep listening. Deep listening is the kind of listening that can help relieve the suffering of another person. You can call it compassionate listening. You listen with only one purpose, to help him or her to empty his heart. Even if he says things that are full of wrong perceptions, full of bitterness, you are still capable of continuing to listen with compassion. Because you know that listening like that, you give that person a chance to suffer less. If you want to help her to correct his or her perception, you wait for another time. For now, you don't interrupt, you don't argue. If you do, he or she loses her chance. You just listen with compassion and help her to suffer less. 1 hour like that can bring transformation and healing. And then from a poem by Raymond Bon, I like to talk with you. I like the way I feel when you are listening.
Can you see this? Yeah. You can? Sorta? You can see that it is something. It says, Karen Van Fossan, UU Minister. It says Karen Van Fossan, UU Minister. This isn't the old one. Can you pretend with me? There's a faraway pasture. And in this faraway pasture, there's a name tag that says Karen Van Fossan, UU Seminarian. That name tag, wherever it may be, I wore for just over 3 years. I missed this place, you, us, a lot while I was away. I'd really like to take you there. United Theological Seminary of the Twin Cities, on a tour, a walk, by the stacks of beehives among a sudden stand of pine trees. To the chapel with its winding wooden ceiling. I'd take you through the cafe where I worked for one entire tasty school year, where you can still pay by IOU. You can't graduate with an IOU, though. And where, I'm proud to say, in 2013, I won the Ugly Christmas Sweater Contest, hands down, with this. Maybe I have your vote, too. I would also take you to the largest classroom on campus, which has 0 windows and 1 big stage. In this classroom, during my last year of seminary, for me, something happened. After class one day, I was approached by a group of classmates, some configuration, for real, of a Presbyterian, a pagan, a UCCer, a Jew, and any number of UUs. They had gotten it into their minds that the ancient tale of Job has something to say today. Now, as you may know, in the Jewish story of Job, there's a very righteous person, Job. Job has it made. Family, faith, wealth, possessions, joy. He's a dressed for success kind of guy, captain of the football team, knows everybody's name. But then, the character of God, for reasons I can't explain, lets bad things happen to a good person. Everyone, everything that Job loves, dies. His family, his livelihood. If that wasn't bad enough, Job ends up covered from the crown of his head to the soles of his feet in fearsome, festering boils. I loathe my life, cries Job. Somehow, this inspired my classmates, some of whom met me after class and asked, would you like to be Job? Not really. Then Hortense, the organizer, shared a little more information. For our final project, some of us are doing a rock opera about Job. Would you like to be Job? She asked. No, well, that was a different question. So we set our rock opera in western North Dakota. After an opening line dance, when Job was on top of the world, she quickly lost it all. Everyone she loved, everything that gave her life value. Her grief was about to break her. And then, here came her friends. Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, played by Sarah, Hortense, and Colleen. Later on, they blamed her for her own afflictions, trying to make sense of such hardship. But before they lost their way like this, they offered her something profound. For 7 days and 7 nights, they sat with her, stayed with her, listened to her cry. There are about 100 things that people don't need to hear when we're suffering. I'm sure you've heard them before. The cliches that deepen our hurting, they might be flashing through your mind right now. But for 7 days and 7 nights, the friends of Job said none of them. Like the people in our remade fable of the boy who cried wolf, they listened a long time. Has this ever happened to you? I've seen it happen in this church. You've been there for somebody who's crying or being quiet or ranting up a storm. In the back of your mind, you're telling yourself, do something, think of something wise. But you don't say anything wise, and the person dries their eyes and says, thank you. I don't know what I would have done without you. And you're thinking, me? I wasn't even wise. In this congregation, this community, we don't have to be wise all the time. Wisdom can be of great service, but something else comes first. For instance, many of you attended the Authentic Voices book release last April. In fact, this congregation took up a collection in support, which made me gasp when it came in the mail, and which I will never forget. At the event at the Heritage Center, upwards of 8 survivors of childhood abuse shared their stories of healing and resilience, insisting on being alive. I was honored to help them be heard as they spoke about how they survived. And all of you who were there, and all of you who thought of us, and all of you who are holding us in your hearts right now, you have everything to do with how we survive. You're doing even better than the ancient friends of Job. You have not stopped listening. Those who tell their stories are not healed just by telling. It is crucial to be heard, which makes it crucial to be hearing. Our wisdom grows from compassion, not the other way around. Compassion is our first calling. Compassion with suffer, to be with when someone suffers. Like most things, it's a practice. We're born with some natural talent, and the rest takes concentration. We practice when we listen, sometimes underneath the words. The boy who cried wolf when there was no wolf around. The townspeople had to listen with their hearts and minds and ears. The word wolf wasn't enough to tell them what the boy needed them to hear. What was underneath wolf? Loneliness, curiosity, a need for attention and play. He needed to be heard, even when the word he said was confusing. It pointed not at a wolf, but at the needs of a 10-year-old boy. Where are our words pointing? Sometimes, as you use, our words might sound a little like this. Okay, it's not a wolf. I don't know what it is yet, but I know it's not a wolf. Or maybe, as we start to tell our stories, our journeys of belief, some might say, well, I know it's not the wolves that I grew up with. Or maybe, they told me I'm a wolf, I'm not a wolf. Or maybe, I don't believe all the things I've heard about wolves anymore. Or even this, it's time for me to start to listen to what the wolf is trying to say. There's room in here for all of these stories and more. We come to this tradition, those of us who were born here stay, because of our compassion. Yes, we come here to think, but we feel very strongly about thinking. No one can take our right of conscience away, some of us say. Whatever your conscience reveals to you, this is the place where I want to be with all of you. Humanist, atheist, theist, transcendentalist, pagan, Hindu, Christian, undisclosed, and undecided. Not because of what you think, frankly, though you think some incredible thoughts, but because of what you feel. The compassion in this place has healed me more than once. My ministry is devoted to the hope of repaying in kind. So I've listened, and I listen as best I can, with ears pointing to mind and heart. When we listen to someone's story of faith, their deep down story of faith, we're likely to hear a story both of woundedness and healing. How did you come here? What leads you to come back here? What do you need here? Who are you coming to be? This community is a powerful place to be. It's a powerful place to be listened into being. Today, the listening goes on as we gather glasses and shoes and socks for people surviving poverty in the hope that no one ever has to be Job. Speaking of whom, I should tell you the end of the story. The character of God was a fascinating study. Played by a queer-identifying Buddhist UU of European descent with a booming voice, bald head, tall and slender frame, and a day job as an accountant at a local Methodist church. God had a lot going on. I loved God. I loved AJ, who played God, and I loved the God whom AJ, who didn't actually believe in God, played. Job, the Job who suffers, gets a visit from God/AJ. That's the thing I love. For me, that's the moment. I imagine some of us in this room are trying to translate God right now to something that has more meaning for you. So, by God, I mean all hope and love and life and power collected in one place. Job suffers, Job cries out. All hope and love and life and power collected in one place appears. Something like the townspeople in our story. At the end of our rock opera, I was Job reaching for God, Karen reaching for God, and Karen simply reaching for a person. Whatever language we use, whatever story we tell, however long we listen, let us agree to be hope and love and life and power for each other. Let us be the ones who appear.